This Sigma guitar came in from my friend and mentor Steve. He's been backed up with guitar work and asked if I could fix this one up. The problem is the bridge pin holes are severely reamed out. Typically you'll see damage on only the bridge plate as a result of the ball end of the strings, but in this case, the damage on the top and the bridge plate is pretty much identical. To repair this, I'll need to countersink and plug both the bridge plate and the top, which the Stewmac Bridge Saver tool and a countersink and a drill will make quick work of. The Bridge Saver plug cutter, when used on 1/8" maple, cuts small bowl-shaped plugs. These are a perfect fit for the bowl-shaped hole the countersink cutter carves into the wood. The countersink cutter goes into the sound hole and the threaded portion comes up through the bridge pin hole. With the bridge on top, the brass and cork caul fits onto the countersink. It's reverse threaded and also quite heavy, which makes threading it on very satisfying. Give it a really good spin and it'll do most of the work for you. Tighten it the rest of the way until it feels rock solid against the bridge. The long brass handle fits onto the square end on top of the countersink. Turning it clockwise 7 or 8 times will cut the bowl-shaped hole mentioned earlier into the bridge plate. Spin the caul off the same way you put it on, then remove the countersink cutter so you can check your work. With an inspection mirror, you can see the bowl shape cut into the plate, but to verify that it's deep enough, put the maple plug on your finger, reach inside the sound hole and press it in. Stewmac recommends drilling a hole in the center of the plug and using a wood screw to pull it into place, but holding it with your finger underneath and adjusting with a toothpick on top has the advantage of not locking you into a particular string spacing. Especially with damaged holes like these, I can't trust that the center of the plug will be where the actual string spacing lines up. It's also faster and spares you a lot of time on the drill press. With a proper fit, the plug will hold itself in place. Using the inspection mirror again, you can verify that the plug is seated evenly and staying put on its own. The only glue that will work for this method is thin superglue. Liberally apply several big drops, and then add a drop of accelerator to lock the plug in place. Looking inside, you can see that the superglue has no issue wicking down to the bottom of the plug, which is now darkened from being saturated with glue. The top also needs to be plugged, which is where the countersink on the drill comes in. I recommend running the drill at high speed and not pushing too hard, though the superglued maple plug has a tremendous amount of hold. Keep going until the countersink fits the maple plug as closely as possible. A little bit of play is okay. Mix up some 2-ton epoxy, fill the countersunk hole, and put the plug inside. You can hold it down with a toothpick and use a Q-tip to wipe off any squeeze out. Then use a waxed maple caul and a sound hole clamp to secure the plug in place and make sure it's as snug as possible. To be on the safe side, let it cure overnight. And of course, clamping 2 plugs like this at once saves a lot of time. With all the bridge pin holes plugged, it's looking good. With maple plugs on both sides held together with 2-ton epoxy, this repair is rock solid. To make sure the plugs are flush with the top, I'll put my freehand bridge routing template down on top of a couple pieces of leather. Using my Dremel 4300 with a Stewmac plunge router base and a 1/4" router bit, I'll route the plugs down just enough to get them perfectly even with the top. This part of the job is done, but as you can see, there are still 4 smaller holes to address. It's interesting to note that the larger holes are going through the X-brace and the bridge plate. I'm not sure what the thought process was behind that, but fortunately I'm not a psychologist, so that's not my problem. For the smaller holes, an 1/8" bamboo skewer fits perfectly. I'll use the inspection mirror to look inside and see when I've got it even with the surrounding area. Once it's where I want it, thin superglue will lock the skewer in place via capillary action. Diagonal cutters clip the bulk off the skewer, and then I use my flush ground end nippers that I also use for pulling frets to cut the skewer flush with the top. A little extra superglue saturates the skewer and makes sure everything is locked solidly in place. For the bigger holes, I'm going to use a 230 thousandths dowel. I'll start with a 200 thousandths bit and work my way up through a few sizes until I hit 230 thousandths. I'll protect the inside of the guitar from glue with a paper towel, then dip the dowel into some Titebond. While fitting it in the hole, the inspection mirror inside will show when it's even with the bottom of the X-brace. Clean up any excess glue with a Q-tip, then after the glue has had time to dry, put down a sheet of Mylar film to protect the top and use a flush cut saw on the remainder of the dowel. Using the same template as earlier, I'll use the Dremel to route the dowels flush with the top. This repair is finally ready for a bridge reglue and redrilling. The top certainly won't be going anywhere, and with all the holes filled and routed flush, the bridge will have a strong, clean, and even surface to mate to. It isn't the prettiest thing in the world inside, but given that it came from the factory looking like somebody blew their nose on the X-brace, I'm not too concerned about it. Maybe the official Martins covered that area with cloth for a good reason. With another repair out of the way, the real challenge begins: cleaning up the workshop. As always, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you again in the next video.